Do not let their age fool you. The old players that can get it done for your fantasy leagues. We're talking about them on today's show. It's the Audible Cecil Lammy, Sigmund Bloom, starting with Dallas Goedert at the tight end position. Now, there's others like George Kittle, but Dallas Goedert, George Kittle, these are all veteran players. If you wanted to throw in Travis Kelce, although Bloom, as I've mentioned, the lost pounds, losing 25 pounds, and then saying you're in the best shape of your life. I don't really like that for the old guys, but let's talk about Dallas Goedert to kick things off.
What we like about Dallas Goedert is that he said he has a connection, a relationship with new offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo. He said he's excited at ways he's going to get me the ball. Uh, Actually, Dallas Goedert was a top 10 tight end in the 8 games he played. There was one game he played 3 snaps and he got hurt. Now, when I tell you 8 games, like, whoa, you're bearing the lead. He missed basically more than half the season. Okay, well, that's more than factored into his price outside of the top 10 tight ends, but we know he's a skilled player. We know he's in an efficient offense. And what we haven't factored into the Eagles offense is I think that Jalen Hurts only threw like 360 some passes last year, something like that. So that's not going to necessarily stay the same. It's going to go up. We don't know how much it's going to go up. So really, there's, if you're saying Davante Smith, AJ Brown, maybe I should be looking at them too, or even Jalen Hurts. Makes sense. But Dallas Goedert's the cheapest. And if you like to wait at tight end, he's one of those tight ends that you already know you're getting a top 10 tight end. He could even grow and become more with the affinity between him and the new offensive coordinator. And what I always like sees at this time of year, you want to take players in good offenses. It's one of the best.
Yeah, one of the best. And I'm not sure maybe that we should have started with this conversation, Bloom, but is it just the shiny new objects? Like, I love rookies. I love loading up on rookies. I love young players. I love second year guys that are ready to break out. But it's just like, yeah, that's flashy. That's nice. But sometimes the old Honda Accord is going to get you there, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Cease, and I think the other side of that is that we are trying to catch that growth, where, and I love what I spend so much time doing at this time of year with respect to fantasy football think tank stuff, is I just look at last year's ADP and this year's ADP, because it's a real apples to apples thing where you say, now, granted, situations change, players change teams, they get a different quarterback, but you can still look and say the fantasy football community looked at everything this player did in the previous year. He scored at this level. Here's what's changed, and this is what they calculate he's worth in drafts this year. And then, especially when players are on the same team with the same surroundings, you can say, well, this player's ADP has gone down, even though they produced at the level they were expected to produce last year. What's going on here? And in many cases, it's ageism. The fantasy football players, they want to get out ahead. Better to be a year early than a year late on players who are hitting the cliff. But in a redraft, 1 year, that's the dynasty thinking. In redraft thinking, more often than not, if we hadn't seen affirmative signs of the cliff, like Christian McCaffrey coming back and only hitting like 16 miles an hour top speed, if we haven't seen something like that, then you shouldn't assume it's going to happen this year.
Yeah, yeah. Be careful out there. Be careful if you're trying to tackle Derrick Henry. So he's not the old Honda Accord. He's the old like 77 Ford Highboy F250 with the 428. 460 actually. Go with the largest possible engine. Derrick Henry with the largest possible outcome for your fantasy leagues.
And what we might not be factoring in here with Derrick Henry, now he wasn't an elite fantasy running back one last year. He was a strong running back one, worth about where he's going, end of the first round, early second round. No signs of decline here. But what we're not factoring in is this offense can get even better. This Ravens offense was in onboarding some new offensive linemen. There were some positions up for grabs last year. And this year, the offensive line is going to be better. We already saw Lamar Jackson perform at a hyper-efficient level. They have now DeAndre Hopkins. They have Isaiah Likely coming into his own. They weren't able to or didn't want to, for the terms that were out there, to trade Mark Andrews. Keaton Mitchell's back. Okay, so these defenses are going to be hamstrung in so many different directions, which means that, like the Kool-Aid man, here comes Derrick Henry, and the touchdowns the second half of the year are going to come, the long touchdowns. And remember this, Cease. Adam Sandler told him if he goes for over 2,000 yards again this year, he's going to put him in a movie. So he's got to go over 2,000 yards.
Yeah, you should put him in a movie anyway because he's Derrick Henry. and he's amazing as still the centerpiece of that offense. And well, the new passing attack for Matthew Stafford will feature Davante Adams. That's exciting, even though Stafford's not the same player he used to be. But this guy on that team with his skill set, getting away from Aaron Rodgers could be the best thing for him.
Getting away from Aaron Rodgers is the best thing for everybody. Sees that it doesn't matter, right?
There's your neurotic Steelers
Oh
fandom.
God, how did we end up here? Well, we ended up at Davante Adams as an LA Ram because the Rams looked at Cooper Kupp and they looked at Davante Adams and they said we'd rather have Davante Adams for basically the same money. And pretty good money, like $20+ million. And the Rams are an organization that we tend to trust their talent evaluation, and especially they are scouting players for fit. Now, here's where I'm going to invoke last year's ADP and this year's ADP, because last year, with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew as quarterbacks, Davante Adams was a second-round pick. And also, I think, was it Luke Getsy who was offensive? I don't even remember who the offensive coordinator was for the Raiders last year. This year, in a Sean McVay offense with Matthew Stafford, Davante Adams is going in the third round. Huh? Do we think he just fell off? Because we saw with Aaron Rodgers last year, because Aaron Rodgers was forcing him the ball, he did produce. He did not look like a player in decline. There's not really a lot of metrics that show that he's in decline. And yet fantasy football players, here we go, are looking at him and wide receiver in his early 30s and saying, well, the drop-off's coming. I'm going to get out ahead of that. No, maybe Davante Adams has double-digit touchdowns. Maybe Davante Adams bounces back from a fantasy standpoint because he's in a hyper-efficient situation. And you better believe that this offense with Puka Nacua can produce 2 top 10 fantasy wide receivers.
Well, not to sound like Gary V, I'm going to buy the flippin' Jets.
Yeah.
But attention is the number one asset. Who's getting the attention, Puka or Davante?
Right.
It's Puka.
Right.
And that means Davante is going to be one-on-one against some slappy corner. I like that. I like that a lot. I think I just like saying slappy. Anyway, because I can't say the real thing. Sorry, Joe. Let's talk about Adam Thielen. He's no slappy. He's a veteran that as Bryce Young continues to grow. And I think the Thielen take is not just about him. It's also about Bryce Young and what else is around him now. But Thielen as that ultimate security blanket. Also, it doesn't help I guess it does help they don't have a tight end. So Thielen's there for that security blanket role.
Yeah. See, you were saying slappy back when Adam Thielen was an undrafted free agent trying to make the Vikings roster. Slappy is a really fun word to say. There's just certain words. Never lose that part of you as a kid that just giggles like when someone farts. Never lose that. Never, when things are just funny just because. Slappy is funny just because. And what is especially funny is Adam Thielen's ADP in the back half of drafts. 130s, 140s, 150s, 11th, 12th, 13th round. Folks, go back and look. Use the Football Guys game logs. Because what I really like about the Football Guys game logs is it's visual information that's a narrative also. It's sequential, right? You can see, sometimes you don't even need to look at the numbers and process the numbers. Just looking at the number of digits sometimes in terms of targets, in terms of catches and yards, touchdowns, you can see the patterns. And with Bryce Young, it was after the bye. The bye was just transformational for Bryce Young. He found himself, he found his confidence, and he found Adam Thielen, who was coming back from a hamstring injury. And Adam Thielen was a borderline top 10 PPR wide receiver from that point on. Now you add Tedero McMillan, Jalen Coger's coming on. Javier Legette is going to be in a better role for his skill set because of the addition of McMillan. So maybe Adam Thielen's not going to dominate targets, but as you point out, Cease, this offense could just become a lot more efficient. And at that price, Adam Thielen, what if Xavier Legette foot issues again? What if Tedero McMillan isn't quite ready because he was winning with that amazing size, fluidity, build-up speed combination, and it's not college anymore against NFL corners. They've seen that. They're going to know how to handle it. I'd like Jalen Coker, but he's more of a chunk play, shot play guy. Why can't Adam Thielen get 6, 7, 8 catches a game, just like he did down the stretch? Came back, they gave him a little bit of a raise. So this is fun. I love seeing players like Adam Thielen continuing to prove the doubters wrong.
Let's talk about not writing back the haters. They wrote me off, but I didn't run him back. And that's Geno Smith. To wrap up today's program, why is Geno an old man you can rely on?
Isn't this fun, Cease? I mean, um, I I got something in the mail from the AARP. Welcome to the 50s Club. That's what's happening for me this summer. I'll turn this into an on the couch episode. But as we get older, our lives move fast. We don't see our friends as often. Everyone's not as lucky as me and you, Cease, to get to see each other almost every day during the season, sometimes more than once a day. And sometimes you'll see one of your old friends and you're like, you look like you're doing good. I'm happy for you. Aren't you happy for Geno Smith? After what he endured in his career and even the offensive line play and some of the different transitions that didn't go well in Seattle, now he gets to play again with Pete Carroll. He gets Chip Kelly. He gets an improved offensive line. He gets Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, right? Ashton Genty. This is a situation that could really be a renaissance for him. Now, from a fantasy standpoint, for Geno Smith himself, there was a time that we were drafting him as a top 10 fantasy quarterback, and he might be a top 10 fantasy quarterback again. But what you should be more aware of is how he can be the rug that ties the room together in this offense and really launches this offense, and how you may get Brock Bowers overachieving, although you should still wait at tight end. You might get Jacoby Myers really overachieving. Jacoby Myers approaching like middle class Amon-Ra St. Brown level in a more efficient offense with a quarterback like Geno Smith. And maybe somebody breaks out like a Trey Tucker or Dante Thornton. Or it just all fuels Ashton Genty to be the number one running back this year. The Raiders offense, with everything they've got assembled around Geno Smith, they showed confidence in him by signing him. That's the other side of this. Basically, Sam Darnold and Geno Smith got the same contract. Seattle was willing to give Sam Darnold that contract because it's a year-to-year contract. The Raiders gave Geno Smith a little more guaranteed money to show, like, no, we're not. This isn't just a one-year rental. You're our guy. You're our franchise quarterback. That should give you confidence in him in this offense.
Confidence going forward with 20 years of the Audible here. We appreciate everyone out there for watching on our YouTube channel. Make sure to check out all of our Football Guys YouTube channels, and we certainly appreciate you for doing just that. He is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on all the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I'm at Cecil Lammy. The show is at the Audible, saying thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty?